What's going on, everyone? Today we are going to cover all the hero augments that are good right now and try to set you up with how they are going to work in future patches as well, because there are a lot of fun hero augments out there right now, and when you get offered them, you need to know how to play them. So I update a tier list on bunnymuffins.lol/meta where I point out exactly which ones are the best ones, which ones are playable if you get the right start for them, and also which ones to avoid. And I do this every single week, every single patch. But today we're going to be focusing on these hero augments. I think the best one by far right now is going to be Invader Zed, followed by Nasus and Leona. Zed is just absolutely amazing. He's a 5-cost unit. You can get him on stage 3, and he's just absolutely bonkers nuts. But pretty much hero augments always change how a hero plays, but with Zed, he's like a completely unique unit that is only available through the augment, so that's why he's here. Nasus is pretty solid if you get the right items for him, and keep in mind, like, pretty much all the hero augments are very item dependent, and they also really like radiant items and artifact items. But Leona also very good right now because she's just a very OP unit. There's like a Leona Teemo reroll comp out there that's also very strong, but this one can do that, but also give you many more options on pathing for your game on which direction you want to go in. And then after that, we have Termeepnal Velocity, that's with Poppy, Big Bang Meepsie, Contract Killer Pike, Self-Destruct Gragas, Heat Death Mordekaiser, and then in the bottom we have Reach for the Stars Jax and Stellar Combo Aatrox. Not that these are going to be bad for the whole set, but I feel like right now they are a bit more lackluster compared to the other ones. But the general rule of thumb with most of these hero augments is to only pick them if you have copies of those units or the right items for them. So first things first is with Zed. Zed is absolutely amazing, but you absolutely need two things: mana items and Edge of Night. So when you pick Zed, his augment is right over here. It only shows up in stage 3-2, and then it gives you a Zed later on. And you also get a Spear of Shojin. So the way you want to build Zed is you want to drop an Edge of Night on him, and then a Spear of Shojin, and then another mana item. It could be Protector's Vow, it could be Adaptive Helm, it could be double Shojin, it could be blue buff, whatever you need. You really just need some sort of mana item. The reason why is because you just need him to cast as much as possible, because he creates clones of himself at reduced max health and then also increases the mana cost. But essentially, the more he clones, because the clones can also create more clones. So Edge of Night, absolutely mandatory to make him live, and then anything that gives him mana, absolutely mandatory to get him to cast a lot. But pretty much whenever you play this comp, maybe you had an Edge of Night earlier, maybe you're going for something like Master Yi, so you built it early on. Or maybe you just have a spare sword or a chain. That's the time to do this because, again, you don't need to play him right away. You get this augment in stage 3, so you can kind of plan out your items during the God round just to put yourself in the right direction for this to be super effective. But pretty much with this comp, you could run it with almost anything because Zed doesn't have any traits, so you could pretty much play it with whichever comp you want. But what I like to do is, because I'm spending items and investing items in him, I like filling him with a lot of support units, so that's going to end up being a lot of the Nova units and the legendary units. So stuff like Morgana and Shen, they either debuff the enemy team or give a buff to your Zed, and then the Novas are going to give a lot of power to your Zed too, just because Novas buff up your entire team. So if there's a trait that buffs up your entire team, like Bastion and Brawler do the same thing, Brawlers give 5% health, Bastion gives 15 armor and magic resistance, you want to be putting it on your board and helping the Zed out because he's going to be the guy who's carrying your team hard. You also need to protect him a little bit. Make sure he doesn't get targeted first because he either makes a million clones or he makes none. But overall, I like this build a lot. This is kind of like an auto take if you get like best in slot Zed, and if you also have the ability to reach level 9, which can be a little tricky because you are taking an augment that does not give you any experience or anything like that, but you do have the added bonus of not needing to roll for a 1-star copy of your main carry. But Fast 9ing is going to be best with this, but he does fit in a couple of other comps, and I do have the whole write-out over here on everything you need to know on how to navigate and play this comp, and also tips for this. For example, you do not want to play this comp if you're low HP because Fast 9ing is pretty important. But all this can be found on my website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta. But let's move on into the next comp. The other ones are a bit more complicated just because they play out just a little differently. But first up we have is Bonk Nasus Hero Augment. And this rule applies to every single hero augment we'll talk about after this. And that is, you need a lot of copies of the specific unit you want to get the hero augment for. So if you're doing a comp that naturally plays them, they're going to work out really, really well because you just get some extra power added to your board. And one comp that works out in is going to be the Teemo Leona reroll. That's actually going to be true for this comp and the next one, which is Shieldmaiden Leona. both of them kind of use the same units or similar units. But in this comp here, you just go 6 Vanguard, 3 Space Groove, and 3 Shepherd. You pretty much just play the Teemo Leona comp, except you now have 2 options for carries instead of just 1. And when you're re-rolling, you get to re-roll everything at the same time. So pretty much all you need to do is get the Rage Blade, Bloodthirster, and Titan's Resolve combo. This gets him a lot of attack speed to be attacking constantly, and it also gives him CC immunity so that he is going to be attacking a ton. So pretty much your strongest Nasus, Bonk, makes your Nasus an attack fighter with a single target ability that gets stronger with each kill. You obviously want a 2-star Nasus to start the game with, and you want at least 1 slammable item on him when you are going for this. But he's super strong in the early game because he kind of acts as both like a tank and a DPS unit since he's going to be a fighter. And those units just generally do well in those stages of the game. And it's also just a silver augment, so no one's going to have anything insane to kind of interrupt a lot of win streaks with. But yeah, main tank items on Leona, attack speed items on Teemo, melee items on Nasus plus a Rage Blade, and then you just drop in 6 Vanguard and you are going to be good to go. Very easy comp to play, just do 1 cost reroll for this. And yeah, that just means rolling at level 4 on stage 3-1, stabilizing there, see if you could push an all-in. If not, econ back up, and then slow roll for Nasus, Teemo, and Leona later on. Another thing to note is that Leona 3-star, while nice, is not completely necessary. If you get Nasus 3, Teemo 3, and let's say you don't have many Leonas, you could always use someone else as a tank because you got 4 other Vanguards to choose from. You could do either like 2-star Alawi or 2-star Nunu as your main tank, but obviously it is nicer to have the 3-star Leona as well, but not absolutely mandatory. But Leona's an incredible unit right now, so on this patch, if you're watching this video today, I would go for it. But maybe in a future patch when Leona's not as strong, probably skip it. Speaking of Leona, we have another 6 Vanguard comp here with the Leona. And this comp is built more so around Arbiters with LeBlanc as a backline carry instead of Teemo. But the main part of it stays the same. Instead of playing Teemo, you play Zoe, just to get more Arbiter. And this comp works really well on Leona with the Sterex, Titan's Resolve, and Bloodthirster, just a standard melee carry combination there. And in this particular build, sometimes you don't even have to do that much to get the Leona, because if you get a Leona generating Arbiter, you don't need to do that much to get Leona. So what you can do is just print Leonas and then tempo into LeBlanc and get a board with 6 Vanguards, and then pretty much just have a free game. You can also play this in the regular Teemo version, but the game plan does change up a little bit there. Pretty much you just roll more for 1-stars and then go for multiple 1-stars. But what I like about this is that you only need 1 3-star unit, and then after that you just power level up and you don't have to think too hard about that. It makes the game really easy to play, and pretty much from a silver augment, as long as your Arbiter's the print Leona thing, you just get super tempo and you never have to quote unquote like get lucky in order to do well that game. So that's what I like about this one. You might not win a lot of games with it, but it's good at getting a lot of top 4s. But if you don't get the Leona printing Arbiter, another thing that works out pretty well is getting the shield ones, just because it keeps her up a lot longer, especially since she's a little bit less durable, since she does not have 3 tank items on her. Next build up we have is the Poppy Hero Augment, Termeepnal Velocity. This one turns your strongest Poppy into a attack caster that flings high velocity meeps at her target. So her build's gonna look a little bit funky, but pretty much what you want to do is run meeples and also bastions, and then also build stuff like Infinity Edge, Blue Buff, and Giant Slayer on Poppy. I know it looks a little weird, but that's what you do with it. And there are also a couple of different options you could do when playing this comp. There's the reroll variant, and there's also like the 7 meeple variant, where you use 7 meeple to print copies of Poppy to get her 3-star. Both versions work. It really just depends on how your game's going. So what I like to do when I play out Termeepnal Velocity is I see 1, what items I have, and 2, how many units I natural. If I'm naturaling a ton of units after I pick the augment already, like let's say you're in stage 2-7 and you have a ton of copies of like Vhagar and Poppy, then you would consider, okay, let me just do a reroll and hit them and move on with my day. But if you're pretty far from them, you could actually go into 7 meeple and try to print extra copies to get the 3-star, and then just play a meeple comp and not necessarily go all in on the Poppy. Both versions work. It really just depends on how your game's going. You have to do the A word, which is adapting, but having 2 options is really nice because it adds a lot of consistency to your game. Oh yeah, another thing, these hero augments become a lot better whenever you get the portals that are like, oh, get free rerolls, or oh, here are some champion duplicators. On those 2 portals or galaxies, whatever you want to call them, encounters, if you get that option, like these hero augments just become like infinitely more powerful because they're so much easier to hit. Just make sure before you take the augment that no one else is kind of griefing you. So if you're going for like the Leona comp and you look around and there are 2 Leona Teemo players, like maybe going the Leona augment isn't the best option and you might need to do something else. But apart from that, I wouldn't say just automatically hard force these comps if you're on one of those encounters, but it's something to strongly consider if your items are matched up to it. But yeah, main tank is Aatrox. It could also be Rammus, like you don't need Aatrox. But pretty much on stage 1 and 2, you just stabilize with Poppy 2, Veigar 2. And then in stage 3, you make the decision, oh, should I push levels, go for 7 Meeple, or should I roll and just play 1 cost reroll instead? That's pretty much the only thing you need to do. Yeah, another pretty easy comp to play. By the way, Poppy also does like huge bursts on cast and her skill bounces on kill. So you always want to line up your Poppy against their weak tanks. So you don't want to put them in front of their like 12,000 HP Cho'Gath. Not a good idea. Put it on the other side, kill their weak units first, and then get on the tank later on. But yeah, that's pretty much what she does. Pretty solid unit, and I like that there are multiple ways to kind of play it. Next one up we have is the Big Bang Meepsie hero. This one is kind of weird because I found that you need absolutely best in slot items for Meepsie. That's going to be Jeweled Gauntlet, Hand of Justice, and Edge of Night. Edge of Night is completely mandatory because if not, there are going to be a lot of times Meepsie does not cast because she just dies before that happens. Edge of Night's kind of a way to cheese that. I mean, if you get something like Zonia's Paradox, even better, but hey, we are not so lucky all the time. In this comp, you're going to do a little bit of a weird thing. You want to do a focus on 2 and 3 costs because there are a lot of Voyagers in this comp. You have Meepsie and Pike as Voyagers at 2 costs and then Aurora at 3. So what you can do is do a 2 cost reroll, get Pike and Meepsie up, and then go to level 7, get Alawi and Aurora, or you can do straight to level 7 and then find all 4 of them at the same time there. How do you decide when to do that? Well, if you have a ton of copies of Meepsie, you might as well just finish finding her on level 6, getting her to 3-star, and then moving on with your day. But if you don't have many copies, I like going to level 7 because the odds difference between level 6 and level 7 aren't too bad for 2 cost units, considering you do need the 3 costs at the end of the day too. But this is kind of what the final comp can look like. It's also going to depend on whether you have good reroll augments or not. But pretty much it's just going to be the best in slot items I talked about on Meepsie, tank items on Alawi, and then psionic item on Pike plus whatever you have, and then leftover AP on Aurora. But pretty much always just itemize whoever you're actually able to get to 3-star. Obviously having a tank is nice in Alawi, so you pretty much always want Alawi 3. And then after that, obviously you want Meepsie 3-star because Meepsie is the comp's name after all. And then after that, you want to just see whether you are able to 3-star Pike or Aurora first, and then build items for whoever you can realistically 3-star. Because it is hard to kind of get items for everyone, but this is kind of what it would look like after that. Next build up we have is going to be the Contract Killer Pike Hero Augment. Pike is pretty cool because he's already good on his own. I'm pretty sure you can reroll Pike without the Hero Augment because he just completely scams a lot of backlines. He just jumps to the back, kills them, and hooks them and stuff. But with Contract Killer, you get him a passive that gives you a 10% chance to farm gold on any kill, which means you can completely snowball the game if you are strong with him, and he's normally just strong by himself already. So pretty much if you get a good psionic item like Target Lock Optics, I would hard force this personally, as he can just get you a ton of gold pretty much every single fight. The other items for Pike though is going to be Edge of Night and Infinity Edge. Critting is nice to do, and then Edge of Night is just great for helping him survive as long as possible. Main tank going to be Gragas. He's just another psionic unit that's also 2 cost, so he's like a no-brainer to kind of reroll with. But after that, you'd want to play something like 4 psionic. The tank item goes on the AD item goes on Pike, the AP item goes on Victor, depending on what you get. You only get 2 items, but you just kind of have to build around that. Gragas just likes regular tank items. Victor likes AP. If you don't have Drone Link on Victor, then getting a mana regen item's pretty nice on him, just because Drone Link helps out with that a little bit. For other units in your comp, you want to run a Voyager. Mighty Mech's not bad for this because he acts as another tank, because you don't really care about any of the other units other than your Pike, Gragas, and your Victor. But overall, very solid comp. This comp gets even better in patches where Victor's very strong. For example, in the very first set of the patch, Victor absolutely was demolishing everything, so Contract Killer Pike was like S+. But since they nerfed Victor, I gotta drop it down a little bit. But for the rest of the comp, 4 Brawler makes a lot of sense because Gragas is a Brawler and Psionic, Urgot's a Brawler and Marauder, Yi's a Marauder and Psionic, Tahm Kench is just generically good, and then you just add in another dude. You can easily replace Tahm Kench, Maokai, and the Mighty Mech though with random legendaries once you get them. For example, if you have room for a Morgana, maybe a Jhin, maybe a Shen, depending on what your needs are, they can be used to tech in and replace some of the other units in the super late game. But You normally don't get to that point with reroll comps because you spend all your money rerolling instead of leveling, but I do just want to cover the base there just in case people are kind of curious. Next comp up we have is going to be the Self-Destruct Gragas hero augment. This one's very fun to play because it just turns Gragas into this huge nuker, but I will note that the implants item, the psionic item, is going to make this a lot better because Gragas just frankly isn't that great in the super late game. He's really good early, but there is a point where he falls off, like either his self-destruct thing kills everyone or it doesn't kill everyone. This comp does, however, pair well with stuff like Master Yi. You can just play the Yi comp whenever you're playing self-destruct Gragas, but I prefer having the 6 brawler version out there just because I like to focus all my power on the units that I actually care about. So when you are doing this 2-cost reroll, you could do Pike plus Gragas again, similar to the other Pike build that we saw up here, but you do put a focus more on having more and more bruisers in there just because that's going to help out your main carry a lot, and like it just makes a lot of tanks out there to kind of kill everyone with. Really not too complicated of a comp, just JG Hand of Justice plus the implants item for Gragas. Healing item early on is really nice. And then on stage 3-2, roll for Gragas 2-star. Ideally play 2 Psionic 4 Brawler, Econ back up, and then slow roll at level 6. Get him to 3-star, maybe get Pike to 3-star. If you don't get Pike, go for something like Yi, and that's going to be most of your day. Again, Yi works out really well because Urgot is a Brawler and Marauder, and Yi and Gragas are a Brawler and Marauder as well, individually at least. So that's kind of how this comp works, and Master Yi obviously right now is really good. Next build up we have is Heat Death Mordekaiser Hero Augment. This one is a little bit more requirement heavy. I like playing this with Darkstar Spatula because it just makes it so much easier to hit 6 Darkstar, because if not, you have to hit Jhin in the late game. That doesn't always happen. And even if you do, you have to play some of the bad Darkstar units. I call some of the Darkstar units bad because they're just a lot of damage dealers. Like in the backline, we have Kai'Sa, Karma, Lissandra, and Jhin. And damage dealers just are not that good without items. Like obviously in this specific build, Lissandra is going to be giving Shepherd, which does something. Not that much, but it is something. But something like Kai'Sa is absolutely useless without items, right? So that's why I like playing this with a spat. But pretty much for the Mordekaiser build, you want healing item, Jeweled Gauntlet, plus Edge of Night. If you haven't noticed yet, Edge of Night is a very crucial item in this set. But pretty much Mordekaiser becomes a ramping melee carry with this hero augment, and Darkstar provides a lot of stats, and the black holes serve as frontline, so you don't need to have that big of a tank line in the late game. Like for example, when we're playing Brawler or like the Leona comp or the Nasus comp, you want like 6 Vanguard, 6 Brawler and things like that. But because 6 Darkstar gives you a bunch of tanks as well, along with a lot of stats, it makes Mordekaiser into kind of like a super unit, and then you still have tanks to kind of help you out in the rest of your game. So that's kind of why it's set up this way. But pretty much this comp really just revolves around getting Darkstar or 6 Darkstar. So you should build your whole game plan around that. So stage 3-2, roll for Mordekaiser 2 and other upgrades. Try to win pretty much most of your rounds in this stage, because that's when you are going to be very strong. Slam items, take an augment that's going to help you win now, things like that. And then in stage 4, find a time to find Mordekaiser 3-star, and then after that, push levels and put in more Dark Stars slowly but surely. But pretty much all you need to do is prioritize getting uptime on Mordekaiser with stuff like Edge of Night and Bloodthirster. Alternatively, you could also do something like a Titan's Resolve if you don't have the items for an Edge of Night. But pretty much one survivability item, that's what you need, and then this comp will be doing pretty solidly. You pretty much just need to get to Jhin. Like that's the whole risk reward of this comp. If you do, the game's going to be good. If you don't, then you're probably going to be bot 4. Next build up we have is going to be some of the comps that I wouldn't really play right now. There's no reason why these can't be better in the future, but I think they're just higher priorities out there. And for example, in this comp here, like this comp isn't really strong because of Aatrox. It's strong because like Twisted Fate reroll is really good. And it also takes a lot to get this comp really going. The issue with playing Nova is that you don't really get that much stronger until you get from 2 to 5 Nova. Like, yeah, you get the added effect of whichever unit you drop in. I'm not saying that's a non-zero effect, but the big power spike is when you get to 5 Nova. So the point between 2 and 5 can feel like an eternity, especially when you need to do a 1-cost reroll first. And then you also need Jax 3, because Jax is just an amazing tank right now. And then once you reach level 7 or level 8, you need to still hit Kindred, and most of the time she's going to be gone because everyone's playing Master Yi, and Master Yi comps play Kindred. So that's kind of one trouble with this comp. But I think in the future it might be a bit better, just because some of the units it's playing is kind of being griefed a little bit right now. But overall, not too bad. Like, you just build the generic frontline damage items, Titans, Sterak's Bloodthirster. He's pretty much just like a standard cookie cutter melee carry. And yeah, you could do some variation of the Twist of Fate reroll, but instead of focusing on getting as many 3-stars as possible, you just focus on getting up to 5 Nova and using that as your power spike in the late game. Some tips here is because you are playing Nova, do not build Shred and Sunder. And also with the Nova Strike, put it on Caitlyn, not on Aatrox. A little counterintuitive, but it is going to be slightly better, at least for now. And obviously, if you have the medallion, this comp becomes a lot better because that one scales on how many 3-stars you have. And if you're going for a hero augment, you're going to be getting 3 stars. So obviously, the 3-star constellation is going to be a bit better for this particular comp. But next comp up we have is Reach for the Stars Jax. This one's okay. It's a little goofy, but pretty much you're going for a 2 cost, but not really. You're going for 1 cost instead. And kind of the same rules applies to the Aatrox one. Like, it's really good on the Medallion Stargazer because Jax is a Stargazer and you want to be 3-starring a lot of things, but it's pretty much just a variation of the Twisted Fate Caitlyn reroll build, and you just also have Jax as another unit to kind of play around with. Main tank is going to be some of the other Bastions. Like, normally Jax is the main tank in these builds, but because he is going to be a damage dealer, you have to do something like a Poppy. Aatrox can also work too, but what you can do is just try to 3-star as many things as you can. You don't need to get all of them, but at least 1 tank, Poppy or Aatrox, and at least 1 damage dealer, Twisted Fate or Caitlyn, whoever you have items for. Get them to 3-star, then level up, get Jax 3-starred up, and then power level to get in more Bastions, more Fate Weavers, and more of the kind of synergy traits out there. Obviously, Fate Weavers are going to be the last things you put in, like the Milio and Corki. You'd be focusing on the other Bastions first as you level up. So maybe your level 4 is going to be Jax plus another Bastion and then 2 backliners. Level 5 is going to be adding in Talon as a Stargazer. Level 6 is going to be adding in another Bastion. Level 7, another Bastion. And then at the very end, adding in 2 more Fate Weavers. So that's going to be how this comp works out. Getting a reroll augment definitely helps out because you have to 3-star so many things. But the build for Jax is probably just going to be Bloodthirster, Titans plus Rageblade. But the good news is that Jax 2 definitely does stabilize you pretty hard. But the item priority is going to be Jax and Twisted Fate items, followed by tank items, followed by Caitlyn items. But you also have to pay attention to what you get dropped and also who you are closer to 3-starring. But pretty much reroll for 1 cost reroll, same as you normally would. Look for Twisted Fate 3 and either Poppy or Aatrox. And then after that, go level 6, find Jax, slow roll there, and get everyone up to 3-star. One thing that's very important is that Twisted Fate 3 gets you gold, so getting him first is like the most important thing ever. So if you're ever close on getting Twisted Fate 3-star, just do like an early all-in for him, because if you do hit, you just get all the gold back and some, because you get to crap on a lot of other people and deal a lot of damage to them. But that's going to be how this comp is going to be played. That's going to be how all the hero augments are going to be played. Let me know if you have any ones you want more details on. In this section down here, I try to do all the augment-based team comps, so I might add something like, oh, what's like a Bronze for Life comp to play, or like a Stand United comp to play, and stuff like that. So if you do have any suggestions for any of the weird comps in TFT in set 17, let me know down in the comments below. I will be adding them. And of course, this is going to be updated, bunnymuffins.lol, along with the full guide, and also like just a standard tier list for everything else. We also did an update on that too for week 2 of this patch. But pretty much, if you missed the update last week, this patch is pretty much look for either Primordial reroll in the early game. If not, see if you have a game for Dark Stars, and if not, like the best default comp is going to be Brawler Yi. You could pretty much one-trick this comp and do pretty decently. And then everything else, obviously still playable, but just not as strong as the S tiers. Like there should always be like 2 Brawler Yi players every single game, in my opinion, and at least 1 Primordial reroll every single game. If not, you need to be one of those players. But yeah, the hero augments are a way out of that if you do get offered them and you have the right spots for them. Again, I would only take them if you have A, a bunch of items for them, and B, at least one other copy, if not more, of that particular unit, because getting them to 3-star is just of utmost importance, and the more gold you spend on that, the more your game gets griefed. But that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.